Okay. First of all, I know people will probably start trickling in a little bit momentarily, but I did want to get started. My name is Lawrence Cenk Laws. And the president of the Turkish American Professionals Initiative here, Professionals Initiative. And I wanted to thank you all for joining us for this event. Just quickly I just want to make a quick blurb about TAP. The reason why we had TAP created is after the Turkish Coalition of America, TCA, this nonprofit that was engaging with young Turkish Americans had closed down back in 2020. We decided we wanted to keep the network and kind of the spirit of TCA on. And so we wanted to kind of create this group to bring like-minded Turkish American professionals and to bring that community and also help support each other and empower each other here. So today I'm proud that we are going to have this event to hopefully help prospective law students think about this choice and yeah, excited to see where it goes. And again, it is recorded because a lot of people are not going to be able to make it and wanted to still join in on this kind of experience. So Andrew, wanted to kick it off to you.
All right, thank you, Cenk, and thank you for joining everybody. And a special thank you to Zeliha, Arda, and Berk. We're honored to have you all to join us today and excited to have a discussion on law school and legal careers and networking in general. And so I thought we'd just get started by hearing each of your experiences, why you went to law school, and if there's any kind of pros and cons, good reasons, bad reasons to go to law school. If we could start off, just kind of hearing your experiences, I think that'd be great to have that insight. So if we could start, at least from what I see on my screen, Zeliha, if you want to go first, that'd be great.
All right. So my name is Zeliha Arslan, and I am an associate immigration attorney at Tucker Nong and Associates currently. And I went into law school because obviously I came from my family of immigrants myself, like everybody else here. And well, when I was in law school, I joined the immigration clinic, and I really loved helping people become naturalized citizens. And so I found my passion that way. And so that's what led me to, pursue immigration. And, that's a little background about me.
All right, great. Thank you. And Arda?
Yes, I'm Arda Cankat. I went to law school here in DC. I went to Georgetown Law for my JD and I also did an LLM there in taxation. I have a little non-traditional way I got to law school. I went to art school first. I studied film and cinema as I have a bachelor in fine arts, but it was during my studies there that I took some legal aspects of entertainment classes and really sparked my interest in law because I just found contracts, I don't know, the law to be interesting. There's all these rules, all these special circumstances, exceptions. And then I decided to pursue that by going to law school. And during my JD, I took a variety of different courses trying to find my passion. And I took decedents estates, which it's about, wills, inheritances, etc. And I love something about that was really exciting to me, that it deals with tax law, but also deals with families and humans. So after that, I decided to pursue LLM in taxation, and now I work as a private wealth management tax attorney at Troutman Pepper.
Awesome, thank you. And Berk?
Hi, everyone. I'm Berk Guler. Very quickly, I'm a white-collar attorney at Debevoise and Plimpton, their DC office. I came to the US for college. I think I would say my interest in law school kind of solidified for me during college. I didn't have a as cool of a background as Arda did. I was more coming through the traditional ways of going to law school. I studied economics and government for undergrad, and just taking a few classes that were tangential to law, and also observing what was going on in Turkey at the time kind of drove my interest in thinking that law school could be next for me. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to go to law school straight from college, though. I just did not have the financial means to do so. So I started working. I did consulting for a bit. Then I was at the World Bank. I think I was very lucky that I was able to work with attorneys in both of those jobs. Even though I was not an attorney, I was able to hear from them, hear their experiences, see what life might be like for an attorney if I wanted to do law school. And I just decided that it was the right thing for me to do still. It didn't discourage me. I applied and continued working through law school as well. And just throughout with its challenges, I just felt like it was the right thing to do. I'm still happy that I made the call.
That's great. All right, thank you. So moving on, I guess if you do take that leap to go into law school, if you're as brave as the three of you are, what would each of you suggest a law student do to succeed in law school? Is it necessary to join a law journal, to do moot court, or join other clubs or other extracurriculars? Did you guys do that, get involved like that? Would you say things like that are good things to do? We'll start with Zeliha first, if you'd like.
Okay. Well, doing law journal really does get you into lots of good opportunities as well. I would recommend doing law journal, but if writing is not your thing, obviously moot court or the other one, which is like, I think there was moot court and mock trials they did, right? In law school. Moot court is good if you're wanting to get into appellate stuff, so appeals courts. But yeah, I would recommend doing some sort of an extracurricular, or just try out the clinics. Like that's what I did when I was in law school. I was in almost every clinic I could get myself into. I did the trust and estates clinic and everything too, and it was only valid for like the summer, but definitely try to keep yourself occupied when you're in law school. Don't, your summers are really important. Do some sort of a clinic, do, I don't know, work at the PD's office, if just, you gotta try all these things to see if you are meant to do it or not. Like you can't pursue a passion if you don't know if it's good for you or not, and law school is a perfect place to do that, I would say, because you don't want to be, done with law school and then trying everything out, being, anxious all the time, not knowing what you want to do. So yeah, I would suggest doing at least clinics at the least. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And Arda, do you have any insight?
Yeah, I definitely want to agree with Zeliha, and I'd say if there are experiential things that are offered, like clinics, or sometimes there's other experiential where they do like simulations, etc. I fully suggest you take advantage of those classes, because learning about like the substantive law and then actually putting it in practice, they're two different things, and it's good to get a sense of what you like. You couldn't pay me to do moot court. Like I don't like being in court. I don't like mock trial. But I figured that out by trying it out, by figuring out, oh, I did this, I don't like it. I like the transactional stuff more. I like drafting, I like writing. So I skewed more towards, I was in journal. I do highly suggest journal because it does give you a lot of great skills. Other things that I would suggest is don't feel like pigeonholed into taking classes that you think you should take. Like, yes, there are certain, first year you don't get to choose, but there are certain classes you obviously need to take to qualify to sit for the bar, especially for LLM student. But take some fun classes too. Like I took Law of Robots. I thought that was so fun, so exciting, because there's like very traditional areas in law, but there's very exciting things too. So don't feel afraid to, go out and try something new and try to find what your specialization could be down the line.
Awesome. Thank you. Berk?
Yeah, I definitely agree with both Zeliha and Arda. Totally on board with all of that. I think a lot of it depends on what you're going to be interested in, and a very big piece of that is just doing, like they said, actually doing those experiential activities or other opportunities that are offered to you, and like figuring it out in practice. Is that what you want from your law career? For me, I think it was slightly there was a slight variation. I was working through law school, so I had a day job. I was going to classes at night, so sometimes I just wanted to be done with like everything and just sleep, but I definitely agree that it's a reality, and especially for certain things like law firms, for example. If you want to end up in a law firm, I think there's a certain level of also expectation, in addition to it being good for you to figure out what you want. I think law firms and certain other places expect you to have those kinds of experiences. So I did journal. I didn't do the main journal, but I did another journal, which I still thought was really helpful in kind of giving me that discipline of what writing is like. I also did not like the idea of moot court, but I did the alternative dispute resolution, which I actually enjoyed a lot. Did some negotiation, some arbitration. So I think extracurriculars are generally really helpful. They're also helpful in terms of getting to know people who can help you down the road, even if you just spend maybe one competition with them or write an article with them. These people will remember you several years from now, and you'll be in different roles where you can help each other. I also 100% agree with Arda in that yeah, it definitely makes sense to take those traditional courses, but I also think that everyone should think about what's going to be both just interesting and make that law school life, which is as challenging as it is, a little bit more fun, like those different classes. I think the most fun class that I took was computer programming for lawyers, and I definitely thought I would do it 100% again. I wish there were more classes like that. So I also think that that's also a key to I think succeeding in law school. That shows you that you're not just taking this linear path, but you have this kind of flexibility to yourself, and are thinking about different aspects of what the profession might be like, and also what might be helpful for you down the road too.
Great, thanks, Beck. I completely agree, and as we were talking about earlier, connections go a long way, but you have to first be well-rounded and give yourself kind of that opportunity to get that experience under your belt, and then the connections can take you a long way, which sort of leads me to my next question, which any of you feel free to answer. It doesn't have to be all of you, but we sort of touched on this, but as far as like legal internships go, does it matter what type of internship you get, where you do it? Did you all do internships in the summer, and did those internships lead to job offers afterwards?
Yeah, so like I said, make sure that you're not idle when you're studying. I mean, your first year, I wouldn't recommend doing anything your first year. Just try to get your GPA up to par because that's really important when you're in law school. The next thing, maybe your 2L year or the summer of your 1L year, try to do like the internships. Like I said, I was doing PD's office. I wanted to see if I could do criminal defense, and then decided that's not for me. So even though I do it in immigration anyway, but it's a whole different story. But yes, yeah, do internships. I mean, most law schools have on-campus interviews with some, firms that actually come into and just keep an eye out on your like legal careers. Like I'm sure you guys have counselors in law schools and stuff. So yeah, I would recommend doing internships, definitely.
Okay, great. And if there's nothing else on internships, another question that came to mind for law schools is, does it matter what law school you go to? How much does ranking matter? And does it matter where you go to school? For example, is it better to be in a big city like New York City, or more kind of in a smaller state, not in a big city? Does that make a big difference? Do any of you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. The first thing that I'll point out is if you have a market that, like a place that you want to practice in, for example, if you want to practice in New York City, it does always help to have gone to school there, just so it's an easier sell to an employer who's always looking at you like as a prospective long-term addition. They do want someone with geographic ties to the area, so because you can be there for a long time. I've noticed that. That's not to say it bars you, like you can definitely go to school somewhere else and get a great job in New York, but from what I heard, a lot of the big firms in New York, they do their on-campus interviews, but they also have like certain spots for the New York schools, for local schools. And the other thing is, I do think, unfortunately, ranking does matter in the world of law, because it is very it's based on like a little bit of image and perception. Not to say that there's a big difference in between the education you're getting at the schools, but and I don't think it's going to preclude you from all these opportunities, but it's obviously easier to get a Yale resume on someone's desk than perhaps another school. So I would apply to as many schools as you can, see what you get into, and then depending on like, financial aid, those are also things to consider. But yeah, so I do think ranking matters a little bit, and try to generally go towards the market area that you want to be working in.
I agree with that. The question definitely comes up, I think, in terms of the geographic preference. I remember in my interview, the partners asking why I wanted to be in DC, and I was able to say, like, I've been here for almost 10 years and I just enjoy it here, and I see myself here for a long term. Exactly like Arda said, they want to make sure that you will stay there for a while, because they're investing a lot of time and effort in you. And in terms of schools, I also think that there's some truth to definitely rankings making somewhat of a difference, but also I think you can tie those two things together with the geographic preference and where your law school is, and make a really good case for yourself. Because like Arda said, I think a lot of firms have these certain allocations, at least for local schools. So I know, at least for my firm, all of the DC schools are well represented and like very well respected, and they have the more members there are from those schools, the more it matters for that firm. And the easier it becomes for someone coming from any school to make the case for them. But yeah, it's again, it goes back to, I guess, the topic about like extracurricular being almost like a mandatory thing that needs to show on your resume. The school can also play a certain role, but it's not. I definitely don't think it's everything. I think you can easily show that you are a very driven, hardworking person who's just confident in your ability to excel at that firm, and people are very willing to entertain that and like give you a good chance.
Great, thank you, Berk. Thank you both for your input. I think we can move on now to legal careers. So once you do graduate and get your JD, you still have one more step, and that's to pass the bar. So I think I wanted to ask, some people have questions about, which state bar exam should they take? What are pros and cons to, one bar over the other? And did you guys know, which bar exam you wanted to take? Did you already have a job lined up, and is that kind of the reasoning you took, or did you just say, okay, here are the pros to taking this bar exam, and then after that kind of decide where you wanted to work, or did you already know where you wanted to be? If you want, we can start with Zeliha.
Okay, so obviously I took the uniform bar exam because it has a lot of benefits, and it's like mostly accepted in a lot of states. So, and if you have like a high enough UVE score, you can actually waive into those other states easily. And I'm like almost to my 3-year mark. I'm about to waive into DC using that. I did the Minnesota bar. So, but anyway, yeah, it matters where you go to school. That's the bar you need to take. Wherever you want to be practicing is where you need to take the bar exam. I mean, schools, I guess, I went to school in Florida, but then I took the bar exam in Minnesota, and then I'm waiving into DC. I'm all over the place because I didn't know what I wanted to do, if I wanted to stay in Florida. Florida is like well, I don't want to say the worst place, but it's one of the hardest bar exams to pass. And I didn't really want to be stuck there. I wanted to be up here in, the DMV area. So I decided to just, try my shot here. So I stayed, but, and there, in terms of jobs, DC is a lawyer town. So there are way more opportunities here. So yeah. I would say wherever you are going to be practicing is the bar you should be taking, but uniform bar exam is not a bad idea.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. For example, I didn't have a job lined up when I graduated with my JD, but I knew generally I wanted to like either be in New York or DC, and I took the New York bar exam, but because I knew it's the uniform bar exam, so it's not a big issue. So you have to pay attention. That's something I would look at. Like Virginia, I don't think is uniform bar exam, neither is Florida, and they have California is another big one. So if you are interested in those places, it's, that's something to consider. The other thing is you should also look at the application materials themselves, because the bar exam is just one component of your admission to the bar. There's character and fitness, there's completely other things. And I took the bar exam in New York, got my score, took that score, got admitted in DC, and then finally got admitted in New York this last year. I took a very roundabout way of getting there, but I will say something. It was much easier to get my DC materials, which was all online through this portal. It's very straightforward. New York, we're talking like notary, medieval, get the wax, get the seal. It's a very big, so that's something to consider also, to see like what the whole application looks like. Yeah.
My only addition was going to be bar exams are the worst, but you'll get through them. Don't worry about it.
Thank you. That's great to hear. I'll be taking it in about a year or so. So
yeah, you'll do just fine.
Thank you. Okay, and then I wanted to, ask, how and why did you each choose to pursue, your type of legal career? Are there pros and cons to working in a law firm, in-house counsel, or public government sector? If you guys could touch on that a little bit, I'm sure, people would appreciate to hear how you kind of figured out, what kind of law you wanted to pursue. So I guess we can start with Zeliha.
Okay, well, I'll tell you something about immigration. If you don't know what you want to do, you could do immigration. It has everything. It's got family law, it's got criminal, it's got there are so many letters that I had to write to criminal defense attorneys regarding what the criminal consequences of a certain action would be for this particular person who doesn't have his papers. And so, and it's always an evolving law, right? So it's kind of complicated, but I like that I get to help a lot of people. So it depends on what your passions lie, right? I am in the removal defense team. So what that means is I help with asylum cases, cancellation, removal cases. I stop deportation. And I also do, like family petitions and everything like that. But that's where I found out that I really felt passionate about, getting in front of the judge and pleading this person's case, making sure that, that's when you actually feel like a doctor, like one small thing can really affect this person's life. And so, yeah, immigration has a lot of perks and it does have a lot of downsides because you definitely need to go to a therapist yourself with some of these cases that you take on. So it is a little draining emotionally. So I'll tell you that. But if you do a business immigration, you don't have any of that problem. Yeah. So it just depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you like contract and you just want to deal with CEOs, not actual people, then business immigration, I think, would be a better option in immigration, and it does pay more. I'll say that. So definitely, you got to find out what is the niche that you want to do. And for internships, you could try out doing an immigration law firm and see if that's for you. In internships, that's why I said it's important in law school to do more internships to see if that's something you want to get into or not. That's how I decided to get into immigration, was through helping out people. We did clinics. But you don't really know what you want to do until you actually are practicing. So that's another thing to know. If you don't know what you want to do when you graduate law school, that's completely normal. It's okay. We've all been there. So it's okay to figure it out as you go, but just keep an open mind.
Great. Thanks, Arda.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I really got interested in my field, which is trust and estates, private wealth management, during my JD when I took a class. But even though that class sparked this interest in me, I didn't really get to practice that until 4 years later. I started like about a year ago now. Just life, there was a different path in life for me. And I originally worked at a nonprofit, and then I worked at a small law firm here in DC doing foreign relations law and business immigration at the same time. And that was an awesome experience because, foreign relations law is really interesting, a lot of research. Business immigration, I liked it. I like the forums, etc. And now that I've started to work at my current job, I realize all of those practices are informing my current practice, and there's things that I take from every experience to make me a better lawyer at where I am right now, doing the subject matter I really love. So I don't think you can have any bad experiences. I think you should try to get as many experiences as you want to figure out what you want. I will say, obviously, it is very different working at a nonprofit, to a small law firm, to a big law firm. mainly in the expectation of like work quantity and the amount of time you're working. You know, that's a real thing you should consider, like what work-life balance you want. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome, thank you. And Berk?
I think for me, the area I wanted to practice kind of became clear to me a little before law school. I mentioned I worked at the World Bank in one of their sanctions offices called the Office of Suspension and Debarment. This office does work related to anti-corruption in World Bank finance projects. I had an economics degree, and I just thought that financial crime just sounds like the exact kind of thing that I want to work on. Throughout law school, I continued working in this office. Again, felt the same way. That was the closest to, I guess, what public service or government work could feel like for me. I'm not a citizen here, so I didn't have an option to work for the government. But an international organization, I think, for anyone who doesn't want to do a law firm, but also doesn't or cannot work for the government, is a great opportunity that you can consider. So the World Bank was great, but then I thought white collar again fits that definition of financial crime very well. My practice largely focuses on Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which is one of the big anti-corruption statutes in the US, but has very broad application globally. But also a lot of work related to securities, so securities litigation, insider trading, all that fun stuff that you see on papers. I also have always been a geek about these topics. I would just watch documentaries about this stuff non-stop. So I like what I'm doing. It's definitely very interesting. There are different sides, basically, when you're at the World Bank, kind of prosecuting these instances versus when you're a firm, you're in criminal defense. So I'm happy to talk more about that at another time. But I like both of those experiences. I think they help you build your skill set very well and kind of prepare you for the next step. But yeah, going back to what Arda was saying, I definitely agree. You need to think very carefully about what work-life balance that you want in your life and what you're willing to do. The World Bank and the firm I'm at now are day and night kind of in terms of that. They're just long hours at the firm, which is expected. Everyone knows what they're getting into. The World Bank was amazing. If you have the opportunity, I say definitely consider that, or IMF or the UN. But I will say one thing about the World Bank that I have noticed from my time there, even though I didn't work there as an attorney, is it's a great place for working for potential attorney candidates for the like at the beginning of their careers. So maybe you want to do a year-long or 2-year internship at one of their offices at an international institution, which is great. It gives you great background, but it's not the best place to start your career as an attorney. The opportunities are very limited. And again, I can talk about this if anyone's interested. Feel free to reach out. But generally, the contracts that you're getting from the World Bank or other institutions are usually shorter term at the beginning. So you might be looking at a 180-day contract or a 6-month contract that will end, and you don't know what's going to happen after. Those are definitely things that you need to consider in addition to this work-life balance issue. But yeah, no matter where you end up, you'll just want to make sure that it's somewhere that you feel passionate about in terms of what your work is, and also people that you can enjoy work being around because you'll be spending a good amount of time with them.
Right. Exactly. That goes a long way. If you have a good team with you, then, I think that along with, having passion is necessary, especially if you're in a, big law firm. Talking about that work-life balance. I guess going back to that, Berk, do you see yourself staying at the firm for a long time, or do you see yourself kind of switching to another sector? Would you ever think about in-house? I've heard from other lawyers that they've made the switch. They got the experience sort of at the law firm, and then they switch to in-house counsel, and they say usually the work-life balance is a bit more relaxed. It's a bit better in-house. Or do you think that your passion kind of you can put the work-life balance aside?
I was going to say, since this is being recorded, I feel obliged to say I'll be at my firm forever. I'm kidding. Since we're just having fun here, but I think it's a little early to tell for me. But right now, my thinking is that I don't see myself being a partner at a law firm. I don't see myself kind of going through this level of workload for too long. I do see certain opportunities in other fields. I think again, international institutions are great opportunities that I am considering for myself down the road. Probably a little early to think about something like that, but again, I mean, to be very honest, I do care about my work-life balance. I care about family and everything else. So when the time is right, I think I'll be exploring opportunities. But that has nothing against the kind of work that I'm doing at the law firm or the people that I'm working with. And I'm saying this like genuinely. I'm like no one's forcing me to say this. I actually like the work that I'm doing, and the people are really nice. But everyone acknowledges that it's a very like emotionally tolling and just demanding environment, and even the firms are understanding about that. I think one interesting thing that I didn't realize is how much law firms are paying attention to their alumni network. So they do recognize that not everyone's going to be staying and trying to make partners, because that structure economically would not even work for the law firm. Like, you can't have everyone ending up being partners. And because they acknowledge that, they care about where you land even after you leave. So they pay a lot of attention to introducing you to their own clients, for example, for in-house opportunities that you mentioned, Andrew. I think that's a perfect example of how the law firm life can lead you to a different and also equally interesting opportunity. They, depending on your practice area, a lot of firms care about having people go to government roles, for example, so they can introduce you to different opportunities. I think those are all great options. It also comes down to, unfortunately, the reality, your immigration status in the country as well. So, but I think no matter what, I think there are great opportunities for everyone.
Great, thanks. And I think that'll lead us nicely into my next question, which I believe, Arda, specifically, you wanted to talk about this a little bit, dealing with immigration, but of course, Zeliha, you would also be a great person to give some insight on, basically how can, non-citizens such as LLMs ensure that they can work in the US after graduation?
Yeah, totally. So I'm still, I'm still H-1B, I'm still on a visa. So I fully understand the process can be daunting, it can be scary, but it's doable. You can navigate it. So I think a couple things that I wish I had known before I went to law school is always keep your eye open for CPT opportunities, which are because the one thing you really can't do when you're in the US on a non-working visa is work. They care about that a lot. So, but there are sanctioned ways that you can work on an F1 student visa, and they're called CPT and OPT. Zeliha, you can correct me. I don't know what CPT stands for, or I don't know if you know, but
Yeah.
curricular practical training.
Yeah, I think curricular practical training.
Yeah, so
I used it and really enjoyed it.
yeah, so any CPT you see, CPT is unlimited. Use it. You gotta use it. If you have an option, like I had an option, I took a class over the summer, and as I would go do my internship and then I would go to the class, and it was like a curricular thing, and that's condoned by the university. And because of that, you're allowed to do that work. That's a great opportunity. Always use that. OPT is you get during your studies, you get 1 year of work authorization for that you can technically use while you're studying, but most people use it after they're done for the year after that. And the one thing I would say about that is like, you don't need to have secured a job to apply for your OPT card. I found this out the hard way because I thought I needed a job to apply for my OPT card. You don't. I got mine by the skin of my teeth, like 2 days before my job started, but there are certain dates that you need to be aware of. And it's good to have your full year of OPT when you're done with school to allow your employer enough time to get to know you and decide to sponsor you, hopefully for H-1B visa, which is, there's like a lottery aspect to it. I don't know how much I should go into H-1Bs, but that's the visa you're gonna need after your OPT. And I was gonna say one other thing. Oh, when you are interviewing for jobs, be clear about your immigration status. It doesn't mean that has to be the first thing you say when you sit down, like, hey, I'm not a US citizen, but like, because a lot of employers will not sponsor H-1Bs and they won't take non-US citizens. So it's good to be upfront about those things so you don't waste your time or their time. I've lost many opportunities because I wasn't a US citizen. And it's a little harder for you, but it's definitely doable. You know, I'm living proof of that. So I don't know if Zeliha wants to add anything.
No, I agree with everything you said. Yeah, definitely the OPT and CPT are important. And you definitely, if your immigrant status does not allow you to work, don't work. Don't work, because later down the road, if you are trying to adjust your status, it's going to be a problem. And you're not going to be able to get your green card. And you don't want to deal with that problem because, you know, USCIS is very adamant about that. And they are pricks, let me tell you. So definitely keep true to your legal status. Okay. That's the best advice I can give you.
Awesome. Thank you both. This was actually a great refresher for me. I'm currently taking immigration law this semester. So, and we've learned about some of these things. So, and it's just, it's amazing, you know, what immigrants are capable of doing and being successful in this country. It's, you know, very inspirational. Okay. And then I guess our last topic is networking. So what networking opportunities are available just generally to law students, and maybe more specifically for Turkish American lawyers? I know Zeliha, you were thinking of bringing up a specific Turkish American lawyer group, if you want to maybe get started on talking about that, but also just in general, you know, what are good ways to network?
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you for that, Andrew. Yes, we have started a Turkish American Lawyers Association with a lot of drama, but it's in the process. And we are working on creating our own Turkish American Bar Association. That's also in the works. So hopefully in the next, I don't know, 2 years, we'll have an up and running bar association where we will be conducting lots of opportunities for law students, for obviously, you know, 1Ls for lawyers and everything like that. We are very working hard on that. And as for law students in general, I would say if you have clubs, join them. I was a part of the Women Student Lawyers Association. I mean, if you have another second language like Spanish, try to be in the Hispanic Bar Association as well, like the lawyers group in law school. They provide lots of good opportunities. I did lots of pro bono work when I was in law school because they allowed us to do it. And pro bono does help you a lot later down the road when you're trying to secure a job, your first job. And if you don't want to be, I'm not saying try to do every activity in the school. Don't do that. Don't overwork yourself. But you should be a part of something like that because they do offer, they have lawyers coming in and giving talks and stuff like that in different, legal, fields. So definitely, I joined like maybe two law student associations when I was in law school. So I definitely recommend it.
Great. And Arda or Berk, I'm not sure if you have any other insight on networking in general, or anything else that you'd like to say.
Yeah, I think that I don't know so much about specifically for Turkish Americans, but I'm excited to hear that we will hopefully have a bar association soon. I'd love to join that. But the one thing I can really stress, and this took me a long time to get over because I don't think it's in my nature, or maybe it doesn't even, you can just cold call people, or you can cold email people, or even better is a lot of professors will ask their colleagues or people they know in the industry to come in and present on specific topics. So like in the tax class, they'll have someone come in, talk about like retirement plans. So if you're ever in that situation, take their contact information. Remember at least one important thing that they talked about, one interesting thing. Quickly shoot an email saying like, hey, I liked that you talked about X, that's super exciting to me. Would you be willing to talk about it a little more? And now I think even after the like over coffee or like, you can feel it out and see what the situation will be. But it's so much easier even after the pandemic because people just grab 15-minute Zooms with you. And like a lot of times they're not going to respond. They're busy, but sometimes they will. And, these are great opportunities to really just start networking, and that might not turn into a job, but that person might talk to somebody else who needs a lawyer, etc. The other thing is, I've had interviews where I've gotten rejected and turned my interviewer into a mentor for me somehow. Don't know how I magically did it, but it's like, keep in touch. You got to keep in touch with these people, keep reaching out. It feels super unnatural and forced, but it works. And I had to learn this the hard way once again.
Okay.
I agree. I was just going to say, I definitely agree with the cold calling and the grabbing coffee aspect. One thing I noticed, because I was involved a little bit in recruiting at the World Bank, and now I'm seeing some of it at the firm. When you reach out to people, it's perfectly fine. And like Arda said, you will more likely than not hear from them, which is unfortunate. But it's also okay to, I think, like send them a second email. If you don't hear back, don't think that it's because they don't care about you or they don't want to respond to you. People are actually pretty busy. Like you get like 50, 100 emails a day, and sometimes you just things fall through the cracks. So a follow-up, people will get back to you. The other thing that I will say for sure is kind of something that my both former bosses and currently at my firm are careful about. When you reach out and grab coffee with people, ask, like Arda said, I think ask about what the interests are or topics are, but don't try to hand them your resume in your first coffee chat, or like don't go in there asking in the 5th minute whether they have an open position or not. I've seen this happen many times at the World Bank. It wasn't done to me. I was in a recruiting position, obviously, but it is off-putting when you do something like that. And it's just an easy way to kind of set yourself apart from others when you're reaching out. Again, it's very easy to pick a topic that you want to talk about, or if you can't think of any topic, just ask them how they ended up being there. People like talking about their pets, like, I don't know, selfish or generously. They just will talk about you about that with you, and like, maybe it'll spark some interest in you, or maybe you will want to ask more questions. You never know. So start the conversation in an organic way, the same way you would make a friend or a colleague or something. So it goes a long way, I think.
Right, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Berk just said. It's always better to keep it conversational. If they like you as a person, it's going to be much easier for them to help you. And one other tip is, if people's bios are a treasure trove, look at their bios online, see if they've written anything that's gotten published, read it. And then that's always a great thing to talk about. But make sure you actually read it, because you don't want to bring up their essay or something and you don't actually know what you're talking about. I found that a really good way to connect with some people.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you all for your insights. And so we have a couple questions here I'm seeing in the chat. We'll kind of just wrap up, I guess, with these questions quickly. So 2 questions from Crystal. She says, if I'm thinking of applying to law schools, what can I do to boost my application? And the second question is, what's more important, my grades or the LSAT score?
Both. Both are important. I think grades are more important. I think you could get away with like mid score for the LSAT if you have high enough grades. Now, again, it doesn't matter in your undergrad what you studied. I was an English major when I was an undergrad. And so I had a writing background. So for me, going into law school was like the next best thing to do. So that's how I went into it. But definitely try your best in getting your GPA up there when you graduate. That's really important. And LSAT, I mean, like maybe 145, 150-ish, that range. I think it's over 180. I think that's the top you can get. So yeah, doing LSAT that way. And I mean, you don't have to go into law school as soon as you graduate, right? So make sure you can take LSAT as many times as you need to. So don't put that pressure on yourself that you have to get into law school because of the score. I would try and get it up to like at least 150, and then, you know, apply to as many law schools as possible. Obviously, the ones that are that accept that score will, you know, send you acceptance letters. But that's what I've experienced in my journey. So.
Yeah, I would say think about like work experience. I think it can be very helpful to show that you're like you have a diverse background. You're interested in different things, but you're also, you come from that professional background. I think it does help. I'm going to make a quick plug for evening programs here. Especially for DC schools, there are a lot of opportunities. I know George Mason does it, GW does it, Georgetown does it. A lot of other schools also in other cities do it too. I would highly recommend giving them a consideration, especially if you have working experience. It actually helps your law school application a lot if you're trying to get into an evening program, because they want people with that background. But yeah, otherwise I agree. Grades and LSAT, I think they're equally important. You don't have to get a crazy LSAT score, but you have to get a good one.
Yeah, and I'll also say not to underestimate the power that your personal essay can hold in your application, because you can really brand yourself as an interesting candidate for these schools. So yeah, the grades are important, the GPA is important, but you should also be thinking about what sets me apart, what makes me unique, and really brand yourself well in your application. That goes a long way as well.
Just going off of that, I totally agree with that. And when I had my interview with George Mason before I got accepted, we talked a lot about sort of my Turkish background and when I moved and lived in Istanbul for high school. And I think that went a long way. And I included that in the paper that I wrote. And so I think they, really gravitated towards that. And it kind of helped set me apart because I didn't have the greatest LSAT score. I mean, my grades were good, but I think setting yourself apart can go a long way. Okay, and then the last question is from Serra, who's actually a fellow GMU law student, but she's an LLM. So I'm sure she has a lot of questions and would love to meet you guys. And I think she's on video. So if you want, Serra, you can just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask any questions.
Hi. First, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate you guys doing this. It's been so helpful. I just wanted to ask, hopefully I'll be graduating this May from my LLM program. Just wanted to ask, I don't unfortunately have a job offer or an internship yet. So I know I have 60 days after graduation to, start my OPT, but is there, a timeline that I can be unemployed, to maintain my OPT?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, and Zeliha, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but so I didn't have a job when I applied for my OPT card during my final year of law school, and I applied with the start date of my OPT being 60 days from the day I graduate. So the maximum amount of time they would allow me to not work before starting my OPT. And then you get the full year. But I believe that you can only be unemployed for 60 days or
Yeah,
something.
that's what I was gonna say. The one thing you want to keep in mind, Sarah, is that unemployment period after your OPT period begins. I did OPT too. I think it's either 60 or 90, I can't remember, but you can do pretty much anything as long as it's something that you're doing. Just be careful about that. You don't want to waste your 1 year because of that. I think even internships count or part-time work counts, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you so much.
And I would suggest, if you're having a hard time, to look at some of these Turkish American nonprofits, etc., or think of places where you being Turkish is an asset, and that really helps in those situations.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
That's great. Yeah, I think definitely kind of using your Turkish background will be very helpful. And I think if we could, get some of those, the networking kind of opportunities written down, and we can send it to everybody, kind of giving them these ideas. And I think it'd be great just for everyone, if you guys are willing to be able to connect with the three of you. If anybody has more questions, if you guys would be willing to maybe give your LinkedIn accounts or your emails, and we can send that out to everybody so they can ask more questions and get in touch. And this has been great. I hope everyone got some helpful insight. I know I did. So I got a lot out of this. So we just wanted to thank you all. And yeah, Cenk, I'll leave it up to you now.
Oh, no, I just wanted to say that as well. Thank you, Arda, Berk, and Zeliha. It's been great to see you three virtually again. And yeah, I think it was very informative, and we can't wait to share it with everyone as well. So and hope to see you in some of our physical events later in this year. İyi akşamlar herkese.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Of course.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.